Alex Kurtzman has mapped out Star Trek until 2027. So we're going to have 7 more years, and I'm starting to think this is going to happen. I think I keep thinking it. There's gonna be a course correction, and I'm not seeing any evidence of this. Star Trek Prodigy, another animated series with Kate Mulgrew as Captain Janeway. What happened to Admiral Janeway? That was my question mark. Because wasn't she an admiral when we last left her?
Yeah.
Well, they forgot about that, maybe.
Well, here's what I'm going to say to this. Okay, and again, this is me saying something that I haven't heard anywhere else. I don't think anyone else is talking about this, but Alex Kurtzman says he has planned out Star Trek through 2027. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I would suggest you also consider that Rian Johnson was talking about his Star Wars trilogy up until just a couple months ago.
Yeah. Yes.
You can have plans all you want. But what Alex Kurtzman has planned and what CBS has planned may be two very, very, very different things.
I am starting to wonder, though, because I never hear anything going against any of this. Strange New Worlds, apparently still in the pipeline. Section 31 still in development. No one wants the Section 31 show.
What does that tell you?
You think it's BS?
I think it's BS.
I think I said it's Kurtzman bullshitting. That's what I've written down here.
It's absolutely a bunch of crap. He's talking out of his ass because he can't. Well, for the same reason, Rian Johnson, he just can't accept that people don't like his stuff. And so he's going to plan to go forward until they actually show him the door. But let me tell you something about Kate Mulgrew and that animated thing.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
How do you accept that as canon? Even if you accept all of this other STD Picard stuff as canon, how do you accept anything from an animated series as canon?
Well, here's the deal. We're not talking about the other show. This is going to be a new show they're working on. Prodigy.
Still, yeah.
How do you? I don't know. There's always this argument as to whether or not the original Star Trek animated series from the early 70s is canon. Some people argue it's the final 2 years of the mission. Of course, that actually felt like the live action show, at least as far as writing went.
It's the same rule of canon that has been true of anything else. It is not canon until it is. It's not considered mainline canon, but they have canonized certain elements. So I'm trying to think, like some of the history of Spock from the episode Yesteryear, the animated series episode Yesteryear.
Mm-hmm.
Some of those elements of Spock's history have been canonized, either in mentions in the movies or in Enterprise.
That's the story with the dog with his pet dog, right?
Yes.
Okay, I remember that. Yeah.
And actually, it was more like a bear, but
whatever was the pet, and it was basically we can keep it alive, but it'll be in pain.
Yeah, exactly. And the existence of the animals that were mentioned there was reintroduced in Enterprise. Spock having that particular pet. Well, actually, that was the animated series drawing from an actual canon source. So.
Okay.
So there's that. I'm trying to remember some of the other elements, but just because they've canon. So in other words, I'll draw a comparison. Wookiee Life Day, Life Day, period, is now canonized in Star Wars because of The Mandalorian. That does not necessarily mean that the entire holiday special is canonized.
I see. So they may pick elements of something.
Exactly.
And
I would, and that is how the original animated series has always been.
Okay.
Now, when you get to something like Lower Decks, I have said, not only do you have the fact that it's an animated series, you also have the fact that it's a farce. And when I said that in one of the Trek communities, somebody shot back, well, just because you don't like it doesn't make it not canon. I said, I didn't say I didn't like it. When I said it was a farce, I meant that literally. It is literally a farce. And then I copied from Merriam-Webster what farce means. It is literally a tongue-in-cheek, parody.
Funny.
Yeah.
Funny.
There is no way you can take those storylines as literal. They are a farce. Therefore, how can you take them as canon? Especially when they make meta references, they're kind of not breaking the fourth wall, but they're making references to the real world, you
Right.
know, and they're saying, oh, look, they canonized the goofy Mego Star Wars or Star Trek helmet with the Mars light on top. No, they didn't. They just made a visual joke, you dumb
Okay.
ass.
That actually is kind of funny.
It is funny.
Yeah, okay.
And as a farce, I could see that show being humorous. But I mean, you know, that's like saying that Family Guy is historically accurate, you know? It's not about real people in a real world. It's a realistic world, but it's still a farce.
Mhm.
With a talking dog, no less.
Yes.
Albeit a very funny talking dog. So yeah, I put no stock in, and I certainly understand anything Kate Mulgrew is saying. She's been given work. You know, I mean, but they're doing to her the same thing that they did to Picard. So it's kind of a shame too.
Well, we'll see. I have to say, I've made a point that Picard and Discovery have different problems. My issue with Picard is that the characters on there are all broken people. That
Yeah.
if things were different, I think actually would be well served on a Star Trek series like Captain Rios and Raffi. I think would be decent officers to have on a Star Trek show. I didn't have a problem with those characters. It's just they broke them down and made them miserable. You know? That's what I see Picard more as. Whereas,
not to mention that in the greater world building, you know, her doing drugs and smoking and drinking and all that kind of stuff. And
if she was not in Federation space, maybe if she wasn't on Earth,
that's just absolutely ridiculous. It goes against all the canon that they've already.
The point is, we've gotten better. Humans have gotten better. That's the whole point of Star Trek. You know, I mean, we're not perfect. I mean, even like sometimes you'll have people in jail, like Bashir's parents, who did the genetic engineering on. Remember, but they were doing that out of love for their son, at least. Okay, they were doing the wrong thing for the right reason. Okay?
Yeah, and that's what the stories have always been. But it's just how you deal with those storylines. This idea that they've already established that there is no such thing as money in the Star Trek universe. It's a post-scarcity world. So the idea that, you know, she's in poverty, I'm sorry, in a world that's post-scarcity. If you're in poverty, that's a choice you've made.
Yeah, it didn't make any sense. She was complaining about his antique furniture and all this stuff. And I love that Red Letter Media said, wouldn't that antique furniture have gotten burned down in the fire that killed his brother? You know, and then the family, never mind. That was, I'm getting off track.
That's putting too much thought into canon. They didn't do that much research. Look, they watched The Cage and they thought they were watching, you know, the actual pilot for the original series.
They reused parts of that for that
exactly.
Yeah. Oh, Star Trek. But here's another thing. Kurtzman said Star Trek must also always be sold to deep fans.
That is the most hypocritical thing I have ever heard. That is because he has gone so far out of his way to alienate deep fans. Either he's had an epiphany and learned something, or is more likely the case, it's a talking point that he's been told that he needs to use to try and lure fans back. Either way, it ain't working.
And he was saying he wants to please diehard fans, but bring in younger people. I'm going to be honest. When I was a child, I saw Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan. That was my introduction to Star Trek. I'd heard of the old show, but never watched it. That's what brought me into Star Trek. But that was just telling a good story. That's how you bring people in, old and new. You just tell a good story, okay?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. And he was saying Star Trek has never been a broad comedy before, and I'm thinking Star Trek 4. There were also episodes of the shows that had comedic aspects to them. Remember the Troubled Triples?
Yeah.
And then they did the Deep Space Nine one where they went back in time and did the whole thing with
Troubles and Tribulations, yeah.
Yeah, and they had another episode where they played a baseball game with Vulcans. That was kind of lighter hearted. I mean, you can do comedic stuff on Star Trek without.
So here's what it comes down to, and this is true. This is a life lesson, people. I mean, you can apply this to the political world right now and to the media and everything that's going on. What someone says is meaningless. It's what they do that matters. Okay. You know, I can't hear what you're saying over the sound of what you actually do, you know? And when I look at Kurtzman saying this, sorry, that means nothing to me because it stands in direct opposition to everything you've done since you took over Star Trek. Okay. On the other hand, I look at the tweet that recently went out from Neil Gaiman, where he was chiming in on defending artists and their how they write. What's the term I'm looking for? Respecting the source material,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Yeah.
Because someone, I guess one of the streaming services did a take on Terry Pratchett's Ringworld or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And all the fans are going, this looks nothing like it. And Terry Pratchett's daughter came out and said, yeah, this may be a good show. I'm not making a positive or negative against it, but it has nothing to do with my father's work. And some writer came out and said, well, it's Hollywood using an established fan base to write something in a world inspired by her, blah, 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 blah. And Neil Gaiman chimed in and said, yeah, that's the problem. Fans are fans because they're fans of what they're fans of, or something like that. He said, you can't call it a Batman movie if you have a guy dressed in a yellow trench coat who has a bat as a pet and call him Batman.
No.
And I'm like, finally, someone actually gets it. You're trying to capitalize on a fan base, but you're not giving them what they're fans of. And then you're surprised when you fail. It's that simple. You're banking that you get a new fan base, but you're absolutely jettisoning the old fan base. And you're only keeping a small percentage that are dumb enough to say, well, it's got the name of what I love, so it must be what I love.
And I think that only can go so long before it doesn't work.
Shocks me how many people actually do that, but not nearly enough for something to be successful.